And now it's time to begin our conference program. We're very excited to welcome Gary Ludwig as our opening keynote speaker today. Those of you who met Gary downstairs know that he is managing one of the largest, most progressive EMS systems in the country, serving as the Deputy Fire Chief of Memphis Fire Department. He's been a very busy man recently. With more than 33 years of fire rescue and EMS experience, Chief Ludwig serves as chair of the EMS section for the International Association of Fire Chiefs and was appointed by the Secretary of Transportation to the National EMS Advisory Council. Please join me in welcoming Chief Gary Ludwig.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Come on now, let's get invigorated. Good morning now. There we go. That's what I like to hear. And the reason why I like to hear that is because when I'm among EMS and fire professionals such as yourself, I get invigorated. I get excited. I don't need caffeine. I don't drink any coffee. I don't need any caffeine in the morning. I don't need any amphetamines or any other types of stimulants. And I truly say this from the bottom of my heart. It's truly an honor, and it is truly I don't even know the words to say, but it's my pleasure to be here because I am excited when I'm among professionals such as this. So anyway, I'm here today. I'm here in the Buckeye State, and I'm here to talk about what they don't teach you at EMT school. But before I begin, one of the things I want to tell you about is that I have the federal government won't release the proof that bin Laden's dead. You know about that, right? They won't release the pictures. I got a picture that proves he is dead. Let me show it to you real fast here. There it is. All right. That's after his burial at sea. So, but I've been in this profession for 33 years, and I got a reality wake-up call a few years ago. They sent me my AARP card, and my AARP card came in the mail, and I thought, my God, I'm getting old. And the reason why I'm getting old, and it went so fast, is because I'm enjoying everything I've done in life. I'm enjoying my profession. I started working for St. Louis when I was 18 years old. I went to paramedic school when I was 19 years old. And it's gone by so fast, and the reason why it goes by so fast is because I truly have enjoyed what I'm doing. And so the AARP card came in the mail, and I got kind of a culture and a reality check, but that's all right. I can deal with it. I'm feeling good. I enjoy life, and I'm enjoying life, and I enjoy my family. I enjoy the people I'm around. And then one of my firefighters in Memphis, he thought it'd be even funnier to give me another card, and come to find out, he says I'm so old. I was the fourth person to enroll in Social Security, but that's all right. He's a good guy, and I have truly been blessed to work with so many fine professionals and so many fine people throughout my career. But anyway, I'm not as old as this lady. But one of the things that is a reality is this is who we serve every day. This is who we take care of every day. And unlike those of you who may go to a fire, you might go to a fire and you deal with a building, you put the fire out, you pull some ceiling, you do some overhaul, and you go home. You never interact with the public. It might be a vacant building. If it's somebody's home, you might interact with the public, but you might deal with a vacant building. You don't interact with the public. On every EMS call, you interact with the public in some fashion. You interact with either the patient and or their family and our bystanders or other public safety officials. So everything we do is people. We take care of people. And that is what we do in this profession. That's why it's so noble. But I have also enjoyed my time with so many other people in this profession that I get truly invigorated. I get truly stimulated. You are the ones that make me enjoy life so much. You are my family also. So no matter where I go, and I travel all over this country, I just came from Vegas last week at another conference. Again, it is truly an honor and it's an honor and a pleasure to be a part of this profession with you, and I wouldn't have chosen anything else. But sometimes I run into some crazy people in our profession, and they do some strange things. We're a unique group of people. There's no denying it that we're a unique group of people. And we do some different things that are kind of silly sometimes. But we also are so into our professions that sometimes, and we're so busy that sometimes on the run, we have to get married while we're on the run. But again, we are a unique group of people. So one of the things I've put together is kind of like on the David Letterman show. You know how they do the top 10, where you might be this? Well, I did a top 10 that you might be involved in EMS if. So let's see how this works out, because we are a unique group of people. Let's see how the first one reads. You might be involved in EMS if you ever pretended to sneeze at the same time throwing KY jelly on a coworker's sleeve to make them think that you got shot with a hawker. All right? Number 9, your bladder can expand to the same size as a Winnebago water tank. Number 8, you might be involved in EMS if you ever passed on the green stuff at the buffet because you are certain you suctioned it from a patient earlier today. Number 7, you might be involved in EMS if you ever rolled your eyes when the 14-year-old says, "No, I've never had sex." And number 6, you're at the grocery store, look down and notice that you have at least 2 body fluids on your shoes and it doesn't bother you. Again, we're a unique group of people. Number 5, you might be involved in EMS if your most common assessment question is, what changed tonight to make it an emergency after 6 weeks? Number 4, you believe in aerial spraying of Prozac. Number 3, you might be involved in EMS if you stare at someone in utter disbelief when they actually cover their mouth to cough. Number 2, your personal triage categories are emergent, urgent, non-emergent, and sleeping it off. And number 1 reason why you might be involved in EMS if you ever had a patient look at you straight in the eye and say, "I have no idea how that got stuck in there." All right. Those are the top 10 reasons you might be involved in EMS. We are a unique group of people. There is no doubt that we're unique and we're a different type of person. I can prove it to you. I can prove it to you. How many of you said, "Gosh, look at those gas prices"? All right? We got a major plane crash here, and everybody's looking at, look at those gas prices. They're really low, aren't they? And then the second thing you look at is the plane crash. So we are a different breed, but we're a unique, and we're a good breed. We're a good type of person. We believe in truly helping others. And we're always being innovative. We're always thinking of different things that we can do to capitalize on the way the current times are. So obviously we have seen many crash victims in our time. We've seen many things that can go wrong when people do alcoholic beverages. And so we're a unique breed. We adapt, we overcome, and we improvise. And we look at the gas prices and we say, how can we capitalize on that? Well, this is a sign that I found. This is that beer is now cheaper than gas, so don't drink and drive. And sometimes, no matter what we do, no matter how good we are, and how our good intents are perceived, somebody's always going to sue us. And so somebody's always going to criticize us. Someone's always going to say something bad about what we did. So my advice to you is put that aside, because we do a lot better than we do good. I'm sorry, we do a lot better than we do bad. Let me say that again. We do a lot better than we do bad. And I'm going to tell the story that I told downstairs. We're not going to get rich in this profession. We're not going to have some mansion on the hill. We're not going to have a yacht. But I equate it to the story that I told downstairs. I'm going to tell all of you. So if you heard it downstairs, bear with me. But that is, there's a story of the lumberjack. And he works out in the northwest part of the United States, and he chops down trees, and he's very dissatisfied with his pay. He's not happy with his pay, and he wants more money. So he goes to his boss, and he says, I want more money. I want you to double my salary. And so the owner of the company says, sure, I'll double your salary, but here's the condition. The condition is you can no longer use the axe head of your axe. You cannot have a sharp instrument to cut down the tree. The only thing I'm going to give you is that wooden handle. And that's what you have to cut the tree down with. Now, I'm going to double your pay, but you have to earn it. You have to cut down the tree using that wooden handle, no more sharp instruments. The guy says, done. I'm going to cut down trees just with that wooden handle, and you're going to double my pay. So he goes out the first week, and he's only got a wooden handle, and he hits on that tree. And, of course, you know the rest of the story. He can hit on that tree all day long. It's not coming down. But he doubled his salary, so he goes out the second week, and he hits on that tree all day long, doesn't make a dent on that tree whatsoever. And finally, he gets frustrated, and he says, you know what? I'm not accomplishing anything. There's nothing, there's no value in what I'm doing. I don't produce nothing. There's no benefit of what I'm doing. Even though I've doubled my salary, I have no value. I don't contribute. There's nothing that I feel good about myself. And that's how we are in EMS and fire, especially in the EMS profession. That is that we might not get rich, but at the end of the day, we usually go home at the end of our shift, and maybe you ran 10 calls that previous shift, maybe you ran 12, maybe you ran 3. Not everyone you helped, someone on the course of that shift you've helped. It might not be all 10 people. Maybe they didn't need you, but maybe 1 out of those 10, there was a need for you to be there. That you made someone's life better that day at the end of your shift. And when Ford talks about quality and satisfaction is job number 1, when Ford Motor Corporation talks about that, they don't have nothing on EMS. Because again, our quality and our job satisfaction is number 1. We feel good about what we do and what we contribute at the end of each shift. So don't let those despair you. Now, this is a good reason why we should never send truck companies on first responder calls, right? Because those truckies, they get in there and they like to tear things up. And sometimes we don't get a chance to eat, so sometimes we have to make an emergency stop, and I've dealt with a couple of those in my career. So the bottom line is, if you got a patient in the back, don't stop to get anything to eat on the way to the hospital. But we got major challenges. Those of you who are administrators right now, we have major challenges in this profession. And one of the main challenges we have is economics. And the dollars are really getting right now short, and it's time that sometimes we have to make improvisions. And so this is EMS Unit 1 of Obamacare. And those of you in the fire service, this is your new vehicle here that you might have to go to respond to fires and put them out. But let's talk about today the keys to success. I'm going to talk about what they did not teach you at EMT school. I'm going to give you the benefit of some of my years, the 33 years of experience, and what I did not learn in the textbooks. Things that I have learned on the hard streets of working in St. Louis for 25 years and now being in Memphis. And I'm going to just kind of give you some of the oversights of some of the things I have kind of put together, things that can be useful to you, because not all the answers are always found in the book. Sometimes it comes from the hard knocks that are learned on the streets. And so we're going to talk about some of those today. So what is an emergency? Well, one of the things I've learned over the years is what is an emergency to me might not necessarily be an emergency to someone else, or what I might not think is an emergency may be an emergency to someone else. And usually it's Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Smith calls, and she's having what she claims is an emergency. And I get there and I go, that's not an emergency. Why did you call 911? Well, what I've learned over the years is Mrs. Smith does think it's an emergency because she doesn't have the experience, the knowledge, and the training that I have. She may be a layperson. She has no experience whatsoever. And so my point is that what may be an emergency to her, you might not think it's an emergency. So take a deep breath and don't make the situation worse. And I've seen it many, many times before. Our paramedics get there. They go, why did you call at 3 in the morning? And I know I've been on some silly calls. And sometimes I just wonder why people have called 911. A couple that really stick out in my mind is the one that called after 17 years of chest pain. And one night he got worried because the chest pain stopped, and so he thought something was wrong, and then he called. So I'll never forget that one. And then I'll never forget the one where they called because they couldn't get their lead press-on nails off. So I agree there are some calls that we could question, why did you call? But at the same time, you got to remember they have no experience, knowledge, and training as you have. You've had a semester of EMT school. And those of you who are paramedics have had a year or more of paramedic education. Those of you who work on the streets, you've had multiple years of working on the streets, and all that information is in your head as a slide tray would be, full of information, historical information. And so you're making a judgment call on somebody else who has no knowledge, experience, and training. And again, remember that. What may be an emergency to them may not be an emergency to you. It's their emergency, so again, be tolerant of that. And as I said, treat your patients like the most treasured member of your family. I have had to bring myself back sometimes because we question why people call. But again, if it was your mother or your father or your child that called, would you have a different attitude when you show up on the scene? So remember, treat your patients as if they were a treasured member of your family. Now, one of the things I advocate is that you should keep a visual career of your record. Any pictures that you have come across or any pictures that you take, keep those. Keep those in a scrapbook. Keep those on your hard drive if they're digital. Back them up. It's amazing at the end of my career right now, it's been 33 years. It's amazing, and it is great to look back at some old pictures and reminisce with some of the people that you have worked with in the past and some of the things that you have done in your career. So keep a scrapbook, and keep that scrapbook again, with pictures, and in some cases, if I can get this to advance. With any newspaper articles that you have made, or any newspaper columns, or newspaper articles, or any journal articles that you've written, keep those all into some type of scrapbook. And again, at the end of your career, it's something you can reminisce back over, and it's something you may be able to show members of your family. It's a great feeling to be a part of. Now, one of the things I always try to tell people is stay away from the BMWs. Does anybody know what the BMWs are? It's not a car. The BMWs are what I call in this profession the bitchers, the moaners, and the whiners, all right? And you know exactly who I'm talking about. That's the person who comes in, they're always unhappy, they always got something to complain about, and they're not happy. And they drain you of energy. And I usually like to stay away from those people because I don't want to be drained of energy, and I don't like people to tell me how I should feel. Just because they're miserable in their lives and they're unhappy, why should I be unhappy? I'm always happy about what I'm doing. I'm excited even after 33 years to be a part of this profession and be involved with so many great people. So I just look with somewhat disdain, I guess, if that would be the right word, on some of these individuals. And I go, you know what, I don't want to hear it. I know things aren't perfect, but at the same time, it's up to you to change it and make it better. Another point I'd like to tell you is study successful people in your life. Look in books, in your department, other departments, and figure out how they got to be successful. What choices did they make? Excuse me. What obstacles did they overcome? The best teacher is history. Look at those who have been successful around you and figure out why they have been successful. Map your career and map yourself to the point where you want to be in your career. If you aspire to be promoted, find out how that person became a captain, or how that person became a deputy chief, or how that person became the fire chief, or the EMS manager, or the EMS supervisor. Find out, talk to them, look at how they were able to advance their career. Did they go to college? Did they study other material? What did they do to be successful? Did they step in? As Jim Page always said, decisions are made by those who show up. Are they the ones that always show up and make the decisions? Find that information out. My advice to you also is find a mentor. There's a lot to learn for each new position, and at first you may not even know what the questions are to ask, and a true mentor will tell you when you're screwing up, and they will help you find that answer. And I have had many mentors over my career, and I don't walk up to somebody and say, hey, would you be my mentor? No, you kind of acquire and you develop some type of relationship with that person. And so I've had some great mentors over the years and some fantastic people that I have developed friendships with that are older than me, more experienced than me, and more wiser than me. And they have taught me many things. And I'm always indebted to them, and I'm always in gratitude to them for the things that they have done for me. And a few of them are still alive, and a few of them are still dead. And I always make sure that I honor those that are dead and recognize those that have passed on, that have mentored me and what they have done for me. So find yourself a mentor. If you're young in this profession, find yourself a mentor and have them help you through your career. And as you are being mentored, ask questions. As I like to say, and you've heard the old cliche, there is no such thing as a dumb question. And I truly believe that. There are questions to be asked, there's questions to be answered. And don't hesitate to ask questions of people. Maintain a pleasant attitude. As I said before, people who have a negative attitude, man, they drain me of energy. I don't want to be around them. Think about it yourselves. Do you want to be around people who constantly complain and constantly are always bitching about something? Absolutely not. You know, they just drain you of energy, and life is good. Life is fine. You know, it is by the grace of God that we're here, and we're enjoying what we enjoy. And yes, not all things are perfect, but I always try to think how bad things can be, and then it puts things in perspective about how good I do have it. So those are the positive things I try to maintain within my life as far as my attitude goes. And I advise you to stay professionally fit. Read all the professional journals that are out there. And I constantly read them. I write for two of them. I write for Firehouse. I got a monthly column in Firehouse magazine. I've been writing for them for 14 years now. And I write a monthly column in Gems on leadership. And I've been writing for both of those, but that doesn't mean just because I write, I don't have to read. I constantly read. I constantly read these professional journals, and I also constantly read stuff on the internet. In fact, I have my inbox set up that I get keywords. If there's an article in any type of newspaper column or something like that, such as EMS or Fire Chief or whatever, those articles are shot to me once a day, and I'm able to read some of the stuff that's going on within our profession. It helps me stay on top of what's going on. It helps me to stay professionally fit. And as I like to tell people, you got to look like a professional. You're not going to find this in a textbook anywhere, but you got to look like a professional. If you show up at someone's house with your hair undone and you need a shave and your uniform's all crinkled up, you are behind the curve when it comes to being a professional, because they're going to look at you within the first 8 seconds. They will look at you. They will form an opinion of you, whether you are a professional or not. If you don't look like a professional, you're not going to get the cooperation that you think you should as far as the patient or the family goes, because they're automatically going to judge you. Again, they're going to judge you as you being unprofessional because of your appearance. So maintain the professional look. As I like to tell people also, listen to this small voice in your head. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. And I've had that voice pop up many, many times in my career and say, you know what, that just doesn't feel right. And sometimes it has actually saved my life. And other times it has helped me not to do a procedure on a patient that would have been detrimental. So that little voice pops up every so often and tells me, you know, it just doesn't pass the smell test. Gary, don't do that. And I advocate to you to drive safely. I see it too often. People in our profession get involved in accidents and sometimes lose their life. I will have the honor and the privilege of speaking at the National EMS Memorial here in June. And we've had, unfortunately, we've had EMS professionals killed in the line of duty in the last year. And the majority of those who were killed actually were killed in helicopter crashes. The second leading category of death for EMS professionals is auto accidents. And so drive safely, and your biggest challenge, if you haven't figured it out yet, your biggest challenge is intersections. Intersection accidents are predominantly the leading cause of the accidents that we have where our EMS professionals and other civilians get killed. And man, remember, you are, especially if you're in the back, you're basically sitting in the back on a bench seat. Hopefully you're strapped in, but you're basically wrapped around with nothing but aluminum is all you are, and some struts. And so it's like a tin can. If it opens up, you get ejected out. And I've worked on some cases already as an expert witness for some attorneys already, where unfortunately that has happened to some people already, where they get ejected out of the ambulance after that tin can opens up. So one of the things we're working on right now, you may have heard about it, is the NFPA 1917 standard, where they're working to design ambulances in the future that are going to be more safe for our people and hopefully send them home at the end of their shift. And get all the facts before judging people. Sometimes we're too quick to judge people. And again, it's just human nature. Again, studies have shown, I've talked about it before, that we form an opinion of someone within about 8 seconds. And I can't tell you how many times I've been wrong, and I have been wrong. And one of the biggest ones I was ever wrong about, and I regret it to this day, of all the thousands of calls I've gone on, is I went on a head-on highway collision, and there was a police officer in uniform dead. And there was 3 young kids in a car, and somebody was going the wrong way on the highway, and we had a head-on collision. And it was a St. Louis police officer who I knew, and I immediately judged that these 3 kids were probably drinking and were going the wrong way on the highway and killed my friend. And guess what? I was wrong. I was terribly wrong. And unfortunately, I displayed that attitude on the scene. And I was wrong because the officer was drinking and was drunk and still in uniform. And these poor 3 kids were honor students on their way to go pick up their friend who was working that shift that night at an opera. And they were just innocent kids, and I judged them wrong. And those are some of the things I have taken away, is that I cannot judge and I cannot let my opinion fester and come out on a scene. So again, get all the facts before judging people. And sometimes in EMS we're busy, and our call load keeps going up, and our call volume keeps going up. And if you work in a busy system, and especially I can tell you, as the older you get, if you get the chance to go to the bathroom, go ahead and go to the bathroom. You may regret it somewhere down the line. So if you get a chance, go to the bathroom. Now here's the other thing. I've worked in 2 major cities, and there's a lot, as Columbus, I'm sure maybe some of the surrounding areas here, there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of shootings. St. Louis there's a ton of shootings. Memphis, there's a ton of shootings, and I can't tell you how many shootings I've gone to in my career. And one of the things I've learned is if I see shell casings on the street, that is a clue to me about something. And so again, I'm here to tell you about some of the things they're not going to teach you in EMT books. But if I see shell casings on the street, what might I anticipate? Well, let me tell you what you might anticipate is that person was shot with an automatic weapon. If there's no shell casings, what does that tell you? You're probably shot with a revolver. So if you see shell casings on the street, anticipate that your patient was shot with an automatic or semi-automatic weapon where the bullets were ejected from the gun. And usually what happens when you have a person who's shot with an automatic or semi-automatic weapon, typically you have significant injuries. And so, again, it's just a little trick of the trade that I've learned through the years, that you see those shell casings, remember your person was probably shot with an automatic or semi-automatic weapon, no shell casings, they're typically shot with a revolver. I recommend you become computer literate. I thought everybody was computer literate nowadays, especially young guys and young kids and young people. But at the same time, I'm surprised how many people are not. We have become a technological age within EMS. Everything is computerized. By show of hands, is anybody still writing trip tickets on paper here? Well, we've got a few hands, but the majority are not. The majority are writing their trip tickets on electronic format. And so computer literacy is important. Our monitor defibrillators are mini computers within themselves. Everything is becoming computerized. So if you're computer illiterate, I strongly urge you to become illiterate. I'm sorry. If you're computer illiterate, I strongly urge you to become computer literate. Be empathetic. That's real simple for me to say, but I think the longer we stay in this profession, the more we do, we start to lose that empathy. We start to lose what we feel for those people on the scene. And I continue to urge you to get that back. You got to get that feeling back. And you can't take it home with you, but at the same time, you got to be empathetic on the scene. You got to be caring. You got to show that you truly have a feeling for your patients and what they're going through and what their family's going through. And don't let as I said, you can be empathetic, but don't let the job get to you. And I can't stress that enough. I can't urge you to stay out of this category here of not letting the job get to you, because I have seen too many. I just had one in Memphis here within the last 6 months. I had a paramedic firefighter commit suicide. And I've seen people throughout my career in St. Louis commit suicide. And unfortunately, I've done some research. We don't have any real data on the suicide rates that we have here among our professionals. But we know, you may know someone in this audience, someone in this audience may know someone who has committed suicide on this job and as a part of this profession. And I can't stress it enough, the suicide rates are tracked in Australia and New Zealand, and there is a preponderance of evidence that suggests that there's a higher suicide rate among paramedics than the general population in those two countries. And I'm sure if they were to do research here in the United States, they would find the same thing. So again, we got to make sure that you can't let this job get to you. And if you see someone who's having problems, I can't stress it enough, we got to get them some help. We got to get them some intervention. You can't be sitting there saying, oh, it's too late. I wish I had done something about it and I saw the signs. I tell people it's all right to have friends, but don't get caught up in it. Don't get caught up in it. Spending too much time with your coworkers is not keeping a balance in your life. Because what happens when you get together? You talk about EMS, you talk about fires, you tell war stories. You got to have a balance in your life. You got to hang around with other people. So it's okay to have friends, but at the same time, don't let EMS consume everything within your life. And as I tell people, the only constant is change. The only people that like change are wet babies. So with that said, this profession constantly changes, and you got to stay on top of that change. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind. And as I tell people, if you're left behind, you're in a rut. And if you're in a rut, the only difference between a rut and the grave is the dimensions. So make sure that you always are ahead of what is happening within our profession, and always be aware of those constant changes that are coming about. And as I said before, and I've said it, I'll say it again, experience doesn't guarantee perfection. Just because someone has, in my case, 33 years of experience doesn't mean that I'm perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. I continue to make mistakes, but I always learn from my mistakes. I look for the opportunities to improve. So look for those opportunities to improve. One of the things I've seen throughout my career is that people lose their ET tubes. They get to the hospital or en route to the hospital, that ET tube gets pulled out by someone. So I always tell people, guard your ET tube. Make sure you tape it down, make sure you secure it in some fashion, but make sure you keep your ET tube in place. Make sure you guard it. I always tell people, learn a language too. A language is important. We're becoming a multicultural, multi-diversity society. And if you look at some of the studies, by the year 2050, those who are Caucasian will probably be in the minority in this country. And so it is important that we have this multicultural, multi-language existence. And I know there are some that say, wait a minute, they need to speak English, they're in America. Well, I have a tendency to agree with that because it makes it easier. But at the same time, it's the reality. In some parts of the country, there is no English being spoken. So you need to learn a language, and I'm trying to do that myself right now in my spare time. I tell people document, document, document. I do a lot of work for lawyers as a consultant and as an expert witness. And the only thing that's going to help you and the only thing that's going to save you is your documentation. So you need to document, document, and document. I can't tell you how many times I looked at patient care reports. I looked at that patient care report, and there's virtually nothing written on there. There's no blood pressure. There's no vital signs. There's nothing. I'm dealing with one case out of East St. Louis right now where they didn't even fill out a patient care report. They said they didn't have to do it. And although there's state mandates that they do it, every patient contact, the patient was even in the back of their ambulance. And they said they had no patient contact whatsoever, so they didn't fill out a patient care report. The patient was taken to the police holdover, and he later died of an overdose in the holdover. So there's no documentation to support their physical findings on their evaluation of that patient because they said they didn't have to fill it out. It was laziness is what it was. And so obviously they're in the wrong for what they did. And anyway, you got to document, document, document. And as I said, if you get sued, you need to become educated about legal issues. You need to understand why you're being sued and the issues around a lawsuit on malpractice. There's 4 points usually you have to prove on malpractice. And in those 4 points, you need to learn those. And they do approximate causation, breach of duty, all those sort of things. So you need to study those, figure those out, and become educated on EMS issues. And if you get sued, do the research. When I say do the research, I'm talking about find out what are the national standards. Did you deviate from the national standards? Did you not deviate from the national standards? Did you deviate from your local protocols? Did you not deviate from your local protocols? Do the research, become educated so you can help your lawyer defend yourself. And usually that's what I'm trying to do. I'm usually trying to help firefighters and paramedics and EMTs defend themselves. Watch your language and think of the impact of what you're saying. It's not so much what you say, but how you say it. And I can tell you, the biggest goof up I made, I'm here to tell you some of the goofs ups I made. You're hearing some of the goofs ups I made throughout my career, was I was on the job 2 weeks. And I have not forgotten it in 33 years. I was on the job 2 weeks. I was on an engine company in St. Louis. We get a call for a fire in a school. We're the second in company. We get there, and there was a fire. It was a flash fire. We had 4 individuals who were varnishing the floor. And they were varnishing this floor. They were using a mixture, and they didn't ventilate the room properly. So they had an explosive range there within the room of this varnish. And one of the individuals flipped the switch on the buffer, and that switch was enough within the explosive range to ignite a flash fire that they estimated 2,500 degrees. And when we walked in that room, everyone had their ears burned off, their clothes burned off, their hair burned off, belt buckles were melted in the skin. In my opinion, they were dead. And I said, they're dead. There's nothing we can do for them. And there was a guy laying there, and he says, no, we're not. And I'll never forget, my heart sank, because I said in front of them, they're dead. There's nothing we can do for them. And here's an individual burnt beyond recognition, and he says, I'm still alive. I'm not dead. And I have never forgotten that. The impact of what I said was tremendous. And I was only on the job 2 weeks. I have not forgotten it in 33 years. So what you say and how you say it in front of family, bystanders, and others has a tremendous impact. So watch what you say and how you say it. And by the way, he did eventually succumb 8 hours later to his injuries, as did, well, let me just say this, 3 out of the 4 were still alive. 1 was dead, but 3 out of the 4 were still alive. But eventually they all died because of just their injuries were so traumatic from the burns. I tell people all the time, use these words, they mean a whole lot, and they get a whole lot of positive response. Thank yous, or use thank yous, I'm sorry. Thank you, the other ones didn't pop up, but thank you and please. Those are all words that work well for you, and I urge you to use those all the time. I like to visit other fire departments and other EMS agencies when I'm on the road. I always pop in and say hi, because I want to learn some of the things about them and what they're doing and some of the innovative things of what's working within their systems. And I've learned a whole lot of good best practices over the years because, as I like to tell people, if you steal from 1, it's plagiarism, but if you steal from 3, it's research, right? So actually it works out real well. So anyway, I urge you to visit other fire departments and learn some other things from them. Don't forsake your family, especially your children, for the job. I'm guilty of this also. I would work at work, and I would bring my work home. And one day, I'll never forget, I was in my basement, my office basement. I was working. My little boy, 6 years old, that's my boy there, he comes up, and he says, Dad, you want to go outside and play catch? I said, no, I'm too busy. I can't do it right now. And he looked dejected, and he walked off. And about 5 minutes later, there's like this little voice again in my head. A little hammer hit me in the back of the head and said, Gary, what are you doing? That was your son. You know how many people who are not able to have children, or how many people that love to have children, don't have children, and would love a moment like that? Or what would I think about that 30 years later if I had a chance to play ball with my son, if something were to happen to him tomorrow and I missed that opportunity? I immediately shut off my computer and I went outside and I caught up with him and we played catch. And I'll never forget that moment that I actually forsake my children for my job, and I don't want to do that ever again. So I always find time for my family and make sure that I put them as my priority. Everyone makes mistakes. If you learn from them, the mistakes actually become lessons. The cost that you pay for learning these things is the tuition of your career. And I mean that wholeheartedly, because I don't think people make mistakes intentionally. I don't think they actually go out and try to intentionally goof up things. I think that those are things that we can learn from. And that's why I'm not a big disciplinarian. in Memphis, because my employees do things wrong for 3 reasons. Either they're unaware, they're unwilling, or they're unable. If they're unaware, I teach them. If they're unable, I get them the job, I get them the tools to do the job. It's only if they're unwilling to do the job that I actually looking at changing their behavior through discipline. And typically, I don't have to discipline people in Memphis, and I don't believe in doing that. I actually believe in educating them and getting them tools to do their job, because the people in this profession are usually very noble and professional people who want to do a good job. And I learned that throughout my career. I always thought the way to teach people when they make a mistake is to discipline them. No, that you can take a great employee who has a great attitude, works hard every day, they do one thing wrong, not intentional, and you discipline them, you can ruin their attitude. They're not going to put out for you like they used to. They're not going to produce work like they used to. So, because they're thinking, well, I do all this work, I work hard, and this is the way I get treated. I'm not going to do this no more. So I always stress, educate. If someone makes a mistake, you don't have to beat them over the head. As they say, morale, or the beatings will continue until morale improves. That's not true. So I wholeheartedly believe that. Treat each shift like your first shift. You remember the enthusiasm you went in on your first shift? Try to capture that. I know I try to capture that all the time. I always look forward to going in. Another trick of the trade, feel the hood of the car as you're walking in to a house. If you're in a car in the driveway, I always feel the hood of the car. I want to see if that car is a hot or cold engine. It might not mean a whole lot in most cases, but I'll tell you one case that happened on. I walk into a house, the engine is cold, and I walk in, and the gentleman says his dead wife is there. She's laying on the floor. She's been stabbed. She's dead. And he says, I just got home and I found her this way. Okay, well, interesting that your hood of your car was cold, but I didn't say nothing to him, but I told the detectives about it, and sure enough, they focused in on it, and he was responsible for her murder. What are the WABCs? Those are weapons. Here we are, weapons, airway, breathing, and circulation. So always, as you're doing your primary assessment, your secondary assessment, always be checking for weapons. And remember, if the shooter is on the scene, the person with the pointed loaded gun is always the incident commander. Don't forget that, all right? So whatever they say goes. And don't forget that females also can carry guns too. We have a stereotype that we think males are the only ones that can commit crimes, but it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure to pull a trigger. So females also carry guns too. Listen to their patient. They can usually tell you what is wrong with them and what they did and didn't work. I'm sorry, what is wrong with them and what did and didn't work to make them better the last time. And just ask them, have you ever felt this type of pain before? And if they say yes, and tell them ask them what it was, they'll tell you. I can't tell how many times I've asked a patient who is having chest pain, have you felt this pain before? They say yes. I say, what was it last time? They might tell you it was a heart attack. It's happened many times before. A smooth, safe ride is more important than a fast ride to the hospital. And those in the back, I can tell you, will appreciate it. So when I used to drive an ambulance back in the old days, back in my days in St. Louis, I always tried to give them a nice, smooth ride, no sudden stops, no sudden jerks from a stoplight. And when you turn, try to turn as slow and as smooth as possible. If you really want to try a good trick, put a glass of water on that stretcher when you don't have a patient, and drive around and see how good you are at not spilling the water if you want to try a good trick. If the patient says they're dying, believe them until proven otherwise. And those of you who have been in this profession for quite a while will know that it is absolutely true. That if someone tells you they're dying, usually they're right. So listen to them. And seniority only means that you get first choice of vacation and maybe consideration for promotion. Seniority doesn't mean that you are more experienced with a particular issue, particularly when it comes to pediatrics. I've seen people who have a whole lot of experience but may not have experienced a whole lot of pediatric calls and are very unknowledgeable about how to deal with something. So that's probably one of our weakest parts of our profession, is dealing with pediatrics and staying on top of what's going on within that specific category. And if a patient you feel is dying, be honest with them, with your patients, give them a chance to make peace. Don't try to smoke it. Don't try to give them smoke and mirrors. Don't try to tell them you'll be all right, it'll be fine. If you truly feel as though they are dying, let them know that things are not good and give them a chance to make peace with themselves and maybe with their family. And don't forget what everybody sees in the back of your ambulance. If it's filthy, if you got blood up on the ceiling, you got vomit up on the ceiling, that says a lot about you. It says a lot about you as a professional. So always make sure your stretcher and the back of your ambulance is clean. I can't stress that enough. The middle of the code is not the time to check your equipment. And I had a recent case in Memphis like this where we went 3 days. They swapped out a fire engine. They swapped out a fire engine. And they left the narcotics in the narcotics box in the other piece of fire apparatus at the shop. 3 days later, they discovered the paramedic coming on duty, the firefighter paramedic coming on duty, discovers there's no narcotics in the drug box of the current engine. And they realized they left it back 3 days ago in the engine at the shop. And guess what? All 3 shifts between when they left it until that present time signed off that they were there. And so obviously that was something that I wasn't happy about. But what I was more concerned about is if they went on a call and when they got there found out that they didn't have a morphine or Versed or something else that they needed to treat that patient. Without continuous education, there is a stagnation, which means you'll end up stinking at what you do. So I kudos to you for all being here, learning, and getting continuing education hours. Don't forget the patient is also hurting. We also try to focus on the patient so much, but don't forget the family is also hurting. And your ability to be an effective mentor is directly proportional to your partner's ability to save your life. So if you go down, the person who may have to save your life is your partner. And we saw that recently in a in the department outside St. Louis in the county there. It was a 38-year-old firefighter EMT, and she was doing CPR on the back of a man in the back of an ambulance, and she collapsed and went into cardiac arrest. And her partners had to begin treating her. So don't forget your partner, your mentor, the person that you're mentoring may eventually one day be treating you. Effective direct pressure means no peeking. So I can't tell how many times I've been to a scene already, and I get there, and someone has already put direct pressure on the wound, and then somebody's got to take it off to see what's going on. And then it starts bleeding again. So again, it means no peeking. As I tell people, this is America, bigger is better, so stop rationing oxygen. Make sure you use oxygen on your patients and don't ration it to a certain degree. And expiration dates on EMS mean supplies. Expiration dates on EMS supplies do mean something, so adhere to that. Make sure you're checking your expiration dates. In this field, we like to say that we cheat death, but it seems that we get caught more often than we get away with it. And that is true. As I tell people, and sometimes people don't like to hear it, but we actually don't prevent death. We actually just prolong life. And because eventually everybody dies. But again, remember that cardiac arrest is less than usually 1% of all our calls. And it's the other 99% of the calls that we're actually dealing with a human being. And we actually have to show empathy. We have to show care. We have to show true patient, good standard of care, the way we treat our patients. If you're the one ordering the supplies, get the good stuff. Your people will appreciate it. I can't stress that enough. I don't order the supplies in Memphis. I have a group of firefighter paramedics who sit on a committee, my disposable supply committee. They are the ones that order supplies. And disposable equipment means that it is not exempt from recycling. So if there's something disposable, don't reuse it. Don't try to put it in some type of sterile solution and reuse it. Just throw it away. And with that said, I'm coming to the end, and I've tried to give you a bunch of tips on what I have learned throughout my career without going, or what they didn't teach me in EMT or paramedic school. And I can tell you I've hired over 100 firefighter paramedics from Ohio in Memphis. I don't know if you guys know that or not. Some of you may know, you may have some friends in Ohio. And you have great education programs here in Ohio. We've had great success with the people that we've hired from Ohio down in Memphis. As I said, we've hired over 100 firefighter paramedics. When I came to Memphis about 6 years ago, they had not hired a paramedic in 5 years. The EMS system was truly challenged. And I needed an immediate infusion of paramedics. And Ohio had a good resource for me to find some paramedics. And it was fantastic. They have been fantastic. I thought they'd only stay for a little while, about 2 years, and they would leave. The vast majority, 98% or more have stayed. They enjoy working there, and they're great people. So you have great education programs here in Ohio. I'm sure this education program here is fantastic also. So I always try to tell people, if you think your job stinks, it doesn't, because there are others that are far worse. So just remember that we are in a great and noble profession. We contribute every day to society. We usually make someone's life better at the end of at the end of our shift. When we go home, we can feel good about what we do. Think about the little old lady who has lived 80 years. If you multiply 80 times 365, that's almost 30,000 days that she has lived. And she may call you very well on the worst day of her entire life. And she's looking for you for help. And it may be you the one that shows up and helps her. So remember, what we do is we take care of people, and we are in a great, noble profession. With that said, thank you. It's been a great being here. I truly enjoyed it. I am invigorated when I'm around people such as yourself. And I'll be around the rest of the day, so if you have any questions or you want to talk to me, feel free to come up to me. Thank you very much.